All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hopefully the sound is good. If you guys notice, John is not here. That means he's on vacation. He's duck hunting up north, or so I'm told. I think it was a thinly veiled excuse to run away from me, but I'll take it. You'll notice the background is a little bit different here today. I moved over the weekend. This is kind of the shambles of what I have set up. I'd planned to do kind of like a building a bunker setup, but none of the drywall's in, none of the screws are in, none of the hardware is in. So we'll do that some other week. This week, though, I did learn a lot. The first time I moved all the bottles that I've owned in quite some time. It's been a couple of years. So that was eye opening. And I found some stuff that I didn't know I had, including something that I went ahead and I actually bought again recently because I thought I was out of it. But we'll leave that for the end here in a few minutes. This will be a little bit shorter. John's not here. We don't have a guest. We're gearing up for an awesome segment next week with Marianne Eaves from Eaves Blind and Eaves LLC. If you guys have been in bourbon for more than a minute, you'll know all about her. Let's see. We'll do a quick check here, but things are looking pretty good. So I say let's get drinking. If you guys are enjoying anything special, let me know. If you're enjoying something routine, regular, or favorite, drop it in the chat. We'll chat a little bit. This will be conversational and fun. John, hopefully, if you're watching, you got a bunch of geese or ducks, whatever you're hunting, pheasant, maybe turkey. Here in Wisconsin, the hunting is good. A coyote ate half of a possum as I watched on my back porch, so I got to clean that up this evening, which just reminds me that I do live in Wisconsin. So kicking off our bourbon news, not a lot of new stuff, so we'll save that next week. Penelope's in. We also have a special agave that's coming out, so that should be nice and fun as well. The first bottle I went ahead and grabbed, I was pretty surprised. I own a bunch of Old Forester, but something I hadn't bought in a long time, but since the new label change, was the Old Forester Signature, which I thought was pretty good. Back then, I went ahead, I cracked it this evening. I forgot I had it. I knew that I had bought some Old Forester single barrels, some of the high proof stuff, some of the low proof stuff. I know about the rye when it came out, but this surprised me when I picked it up because I hadn't thought that I'd bought it since the label change. But I guess I had. I dusted it off. It came out in a box with a bunch of other stuff. Hey, Rare Bird, how's it going? What turkey are you drinking tonight? I'd ask if you're drinking anything else, but I think I know the answer to that one. Unfortunately, I think no turkey snuck in here. I'm pretty aware of what turkey I own tonight, but yeah, so this is Old Forester Signature. It's the 100 proof. It's still a no age statement. Sorry, working out the camera here. Things are a little bit different. I got another computer set up behind me. There we go. It's 100 proof. I want to say it's about $25 a bottle, $20 a bottle, maybe. It's not too expensive. It's no age statement. It's much, much better than the 86 proof, in my opinion, which you should not buy under any circumstance. Oh, nice. The 2003, I've heard good things. I haven't tried it yet. I know that it's kind of washing out through the country now as we speak. The Knob Creek 15. I'd found one of those, but I did remember buying it. I'm looking forward to really opening that one up and comparing it to the 12. And then I have pics of the 12 and the 15, which will be interesting to compare to see whether Beam's OB take, obviously the proofs are going to be different, but what societies are picking at 15 years and what Beam is picking at 15 years should be pretty interesting, I would think. So this is the first bottle I found. This is one of 3 that I was pretty surprised to see that I own. Hey, Hokey, it is good to see you. Happy Tuesday, man. Hopefully you guys adopt that puppy. I know you were sending some pictures over earlier. If you're drinking anything special, let me know. Yeah, I'm curious, really curious about the comparison of the 15 and the 12. I like the 12 a lot. I like 12 selections better, I think, but the 12 felt pretty good without being a money grab. Hey, Brian, it's good to see you. Long time no talk. I think, let's see, today's date. It was yesterday that we were actually up at New Riff. Brian, a couple other guys, the auditor, were up at New Riff picking the first R bourbon selection in a long time. And it gave me some good memories thinking about hitting up Hofbrauhaus while we were kind of loaded. That was a good time. I missed that pick. Actually, I have it here somewhere. I still haven't unpacked, but I meant to drink some last night and I got busy unpacking for memory's sake. The Signature, it's pretty good. It's got a lot of that Old Forester Bananas Foster on the nose, a lot of brown sugar, some like fresh dough, which is interesting. Like a lot of Old Forester, I think it smells older than it really is. But it comes through well on the palate. Yeah, that was a good time. A bunch of the pictures showed up on Time Hop for me. That was kind of fun. The palate on the Unforster is a little bit hotter. There's a little bit more going on than the 86. I think I prefer it to Statesman. This is a good question. So I thought I had about 400, maybe 450. It ended up being a few more than that. I topped out at about 520, I want to say, which wasn't so bad. But boy, did it hurt. I think I actually tweaked my back a little bit. We moved all the bottles on Friday, and then I had to move all the furniture and the rest of our stuff on Saturday, which really hurt after moving 500 plus bottles of booze. And then who knows how many samples and wine. This is a good question. It's been so long since I've had the Early Times bottled in a bond. That reminds me I should buy another. I don't ever know that I owned a full bottle. I know I tried a sample of it years ago, like 2017, 2018, right when it came out. I should hunt down a bottle of that. I don't know. Is that regional release still, or is that? I know Florida got some. I know Kentucky got some. I don't know that we get it here in Wisconsin, but I know it was pretty limited at first. If it's wider now, I'll have to hunt down some because that would be a good comparison, especially since we're going to see some changes to the Early Times brand now that it's been sold, and there's some conjecture about what's going to happen at Brown Forman. Oh, okay. $20 a liter. That feels pretty good. Wow. I think that's actually better than this was a 750 for 25, I want to say. The Old Forester is about 25. So that would be a great comparison to do, especially since I have a feeling they're about the same age. Standard Old Forester signature. Yeah, I'm super curious to see what Early Times Bottled and Bond becomes or ends or changes into, especially since there's some doubt about where it's coming from, or if it's specially set aside for the Bottled and Bond, or if it's going to come out of the Early Times stock and the contracts going forward. I think that'll be really interesting. I really like the Old Forester. I remember liking the Early Times as well. I actually really like the regular Early Times, which is kind of funny because it gets pretty poo-pooed. But I think it's like, if you're out on the golf course, if you're going to a barbecue, if you need something that anybody can drink or anyone's going to want to drink or mix up, Early Times is kind of hard to beat. It was kind of the ruler at which I measured craft for a while. Did I like this better than going to buy a $13 liter of Early Times? But really interesting stuff. I'm amazed at how much nose the Old Forester signature has, which I did not expect. The palate is a little, it's a little flat. It's not the most complex. It's a little bit warm. And certainly not hot. There isn't as much oak as I think I would have hoped, especially based on the nose, but it's super competent. Yeah, I would agree. I do not like Old Forester 1910. I do not like it at all. I think I gave it a 3 out of 10. I would take Early Times over it. I would definitely take Early Times Bottled and Bond over it. I would definitely take Woodford Reserve Double Oaked over it in a heartbeat. The new Elijah Craig Toasted over it. There's something about it. At least the early batch I had was not good at all, and I did not enjoy it. So I think you wouldn't be crazy at all. Yeah, I mean the OG Early Times, it's fine. It's great. It's great golf course bourbon. Sorry, whiskey, not bourbon. It's American whiskey because they like to reuse their barrels. But I think it's totally fine, especially at like a barbecue. Everyone knows it. Few people really drink it that often. It's usually pretty surprising. Yeah, the 1910 was really artificial in a lot of different ways. It had kind of a note that I get in Maker's Mark 46 that I strongly dislike. It had like a Splenda aluminum kind of cherry cough syrupy note. It was just super fake from beginning to end, from head to tail, which is fine. I mean, the other entries, I think 1897 doesn't really have a reason to exist, but the 1920s, fantastic. Honestly, I think it's always priced right. It's about $5 more than I want, but it's always available, which is key. It's the same thing with Jack Daniel's single barrel proof. Like I think it's about $5 more than I want to pay, but I'm always happy to pay the extra $5 because I can find it every single day, any day, for any occasion. And people like it, especially people who, really poo-poo the Old Forester name. Man, it's actually pretty good. This makes a really good old fashioned, from what I recall. I'm gonna have to crack into that tonight. I did find two of these three were actually still sealed, so this was a super fresh crack, as you can see, which is fun. I'm looking forward to tinkering with it. The bar is only like half covered in crap here, so I should actually have enough room to make a cocktail. That has a nice finish to it too. I think you'd be hard pressed to do better. This would be a great comparison to Wild Turkey 101, early times bottled and bond. And I would certainly take this over like an old Grandad bottled and bond. Yeah, I really like the 1920. I think that might be the best product. I don't know. I've had enough of the barrel proof single barrels to really test it out, but I think it might be the best product that Old Forester releases. Even with the birthday bourbon is supposedly rebounding in quality. I liked last year's. I haven't had this year's yet, but that'll be an interesting comparison to see because I really don't think you can do better than 1920 and Old Forester land. Obviously, that's different than Woodford and Jack Daniels, but let's see. So the second bottle I dug up was kind of funny because I didn't remember having bottles this small, and this is the tiny roadie version of Sazerac Rye. I thought I drank through all of these. I took the last one, or what I thought was the last one, to New Riff. Some buddies and I, we got on a knee and we had some out of a nice red solo cup out front of New Riff while we waited for them to open, only to realize that they'd been watching us from the roof because that's what they do when groups come in. But yeah, so this is a 6-year barely legal rye. It goes on to become Thomas Handy later in its life, basically at full proof or barrel proof. Still 6 years old. It doesn't say on the bottle that it's 6 years old. Buffalo Trace still says it online that it's 6 years old, but not on the bottle. So I guess we can kind of take that with a grain of salt. It may be changing. It still tastes the same to me. This guy had a little air in it, but I poured some here just now. I don't know. I think it's silly. Like, yeah, this is, people call it baby Saz. I think everyone wants to call everything baby and senior, but I would call this micro Saz personally. I'd call it micro Saz. It's young rye whiskey in a very tiny bottle. I think they did these for the holidays a couple of years ago. You could buy it by the case, by the 12. I think I got 12 of them. I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. They're fun to give out and they're fun to take places. I found one kind of jingling around in a box of a bunch of stuff, a couple of flasks of I found a blend because I've been doing blending for quite some time and just been kind of curious to see how it turns out. But I found a blend of 1980s Old Forester and an old Lawrence Eagle Rare back there, just like some really eclectic, weird stuff. So I'm surprised that this even ended up in it. But surprises are surprises. I probably would have talked about a blend if I thought that was fair. But everyone makes blends and tucks them away and forgets about them. Man. So the Sazerac Rye, 6-year rye, very legal. It's 45% ABV. Really quite fruity on the nose. I think it's fruitier than I would have expected. But it's got a lot going on. There's no spearmint, no dill. There's like a fresh cracked bread note. Pepper, a little bit of papaya, some like really light fruitiness, little apple pear, really pretty pleasant. No heat on the nose, which is important. Some of these young ryes can be really well structured, but have a ton of heat on the nose, which is kind of a turnoff to me. Actually, it's pretty good body too. It's a little thin on the palate. I agree. I think I would need to go back and try the Russell's Reserve some more. It's been a while since I've had just a regular bottle of that. And I don't remember liking it too much. I remember wondering, why I would spend the money on that instead of just going up for single barrel. But once again, for retail, this is pretty good. It's $23, $28, somewhere in there. Every now and then full bottles hit. It's one of the more, I wouldn't say spotty, but You can get it if you really want to. But it doesn't blanket the shelves here like it does Buffalo Trace. I'd agree. The mouthfeel on this is a bit thin. It reminds me of peach rings. It reminds me of pepper. It has a nice clove and brown sugar note on the back palate, which is really enticing. It's a nice light rye. Like this would be a great way to warm up for the night. I think this would do well enough in a cocktail if you weren't going to bludgeon it with bitters. I know John's not here to talk about black walnut bitters, but this would go pretty well. I would probably use the signature from Old Forester, the one we tasted just before this, a little bit more in cocktails just because it has more body, has a little bit more oak structure, a little more heat to kind of punch through those big ingredients, but perfectly competent. And total coincidence that both of these are under $30 so far. Sorry, a little dehydrated still. But yeah, Sazerac is nice. And Thomas Handy, I mean, it doesn't really surprise me. Thomas Handy, I think, is probably always going to be my favorite of the antique collection. And I know that is way in left field. Weller is definitely second, probably followed by George C. Stagg, probably followed by Sazerac 18, followed by Eagle Rare 17. I just love that Thomas Handy just kicks up all the rye spice, and it's super powerful, and it's always super brash, but it's a really nice dram. It's a really nice bottle. It helps that if you really want one, it's the easiest to just suck up and pay for. But yeah, for 45%, this has quite a bit on the nose. The palate, kind of like the signature, is a little on the flatter side. But there's enough going on. It's not the most complex, and I don't think that's going to change. Even though this one's been open for a long time, I think if I open a fresh one, it'd be the same way. The finish is nice though; it's supple. There's a little bit of leather, a little bit of honey, a little bit of rice spice, a little bit of sourdough bread, in an enticing way. I think the best part is easily the nose. So, it's not going to win any crazy awards, at least that I'm aware of. Who knows? I don't know if they're tasting for San Francisco right now, or if they've just finished tasting, or if they're wrapping up. But that's always a surprise. That's always a gamble. But Sazerac Rye, totally fine. I wish more places did these tiny little bottles. I think it would be awesome to pick up like Stag Junior releases in the little bottle. Hey Mash, how's it going? Good to see you. I know you guys were just doing the Turkey 2003. I was looking forward to hearing about that one. So it's good to see you guys hopping up. Hopefully you're doing well. For those that are just joining us, sorry for the mess. I'm still moving in. Got a little bit of a sinus thing going on, so that's super fun. But yeah, so we're talking about 3 bottles I dug up while I was moving, 3 bottles I didn't think I had, but I still do. And this is the Sazerac Rye, just kind of closing up on this fella. So the first 2 have been whiskey. First one was Old Forester Signature, really great bourbon, under $30, 100 proof. Second one was Sazerac Rye, 6-year rye, 45% ABV, also under $30. I don't remember how much bottle 3 goes for, and it's not whiskey, but it's an all-time favorite of mine. And this is Pusser's British Navy gunpowder proof rum. This is a 54.5% ABV rum. It's a blend of Guyana and 2 other estate rums, kind of in the Navy style. Here in Wisconsin, we can buy the regular Pussers and the 15-year Pussers, but we cannot get the gunpowder proof, which kind of sucks because it's the best one of the 3 by far, in my opinion. So this is one I actually bought. I was down in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and I bought a second one thinking I was out. And upon moving, I realized that I had this guy way in the back. The label never changes on these, so you can't tell. But it's a great bottle. I think it's $29, $28. Really good stuff. We'll dive in here in a second. Great question from Pokey. My favorite full bottle that you owned. Man, that's a tough one. I've owned a lot of stuff over the time. I think my favorite that I've owned, and I'll break it up between what I've paid for and what I've actually owned. My favorite that I've owned was a 1954 Old Fitzgerald. It was a very old Fitzgerald from Stitzel Weller, 8-year, 1954 to 1962, bottled in bonds, so 50% ABV. That was a lucky inheritance. A fantastic bottle, probably one of the best I've ever had. But I didn't buy it. It wasn't on a shelf. Probably my favorite bottle. Man, that I've bought off the shelf. That's kind of crazy. If we were sticking to whiskey, oh man, I don't know. I've had some crazy good Elijah Craig barrel proof batches. Those are always really good. I had the opportunity to buy one of the Russell's Reserve single barrel ryes. There was a selection for, was it Kentucky Bourbon Festival? That was fantastic. That was probably one of the better ryes I've ever had. David brings up a really good one, the Single Cask Nation Port Charlotte. That was a fantastic bottle too. Port Charlotte, for those that don't know, is a heavily peated release from Bruichladdich. Bruichladdich aged this for 14 years, 13 years, 13 or 14 years in a first fill super wet Oloroso sherry barrel. It was peaty, it was nasty, it was really dirty and sweet. The wine influence and the peat just played really well. And I think they limited to one per. Otherwise, I probably would have bought more than one. And it was the first of their so-called expensive releases. Okay, it was the 14-year. I think the Stones of Stennis they released after that was a 13-year, which is why I kind of got sidetracked into that one. Yeah, Bruichladdich does a great job. I really like their spirit of experimentation. Even their misses are usually good. Like I've never had a bad Bruichladdich, which is hard to say for most producers. Like I've never truly had a terrible expression from Bruichladdich. I've had some really phenomenal stuff. I've had some really strange stuff. I like that they're always experimenting. Basically every release of theirs that isn't core is just some weird one-off, like Golden Still or Yellow Submarine, or even like Rocks and stuff have all been just kind of weird and fun. And it's interesting because like you never know what you're going to get with a micro provenance and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm totally in on Bruichladdich. And that was a great release from Single Cask Nation. I think the best Scotch, I don't know, there was a Bunnahabhain that was bottled by Signatory Vintage for Benny's in Chicago in combination with Winebow, the importer, and that cask was legendary. I think it was cask 579, maybe. Yeah, 579, I think. And it was 5 years ago. It was like $60, and there was $70, and there was $80. And I probably bought 5 or 6 of them, and I ended up trading away the last one, which is a huge regret of mine. But again, Bunnahabhain, heavily sherried, cast strength, no coloring, phenomenal bottle, great value. If it released now, it'd be $200 easy. So I think those are my two. Stitzelweller inheritance bottle that someone was like, hey, you want this? And I said, sure. I think, this would be good. And sure enough, it was fantastic. And then, spending money on those. Other than that, I did buy a La Medida Araqueño, which is a mezcal that was expensive but delicious, and probably the best mezcal I've bought so far. I think I gave it a 9 out of 10. That was fantastic too. I'm savoring that bottle. The producer, for those who aren't aware, La Medida, they sell everything in a 200 milliliter as well as a full-size bottle, which is super cool because even the 200 milliliter flask are pretty expensive. They're pretty hefty. It was like 40 or $50 for a flask, but the full bottle's $200 and worth every single penny. This is a great question because I know that David Jennings is going to know the answer to this one. We went in on a bottle of Slaughterhouse, which was terrible. Slaughterhouse is a 8-year MGP American whiskey that they shipped off to California to age in Napa wine barrels. And whatever they did at some point in there just completely destroyed it. It was terrible. It was musty. It was wet. It was grainy. It had a wet green sapling note to it. And then the wine finish was just sickly sweet on the back palate and the finish, which was, I wouldn't say disgusting, but it was pretty close. It was so bad that we tried to hand it off to each other, like secretly. Like we'd leave it at friends' houses and see if they would notice. Like we left it in one guy's shower. Like I left it in the back of some guy's pickup truck, and he left it on my porch and stuff. It was truly terrible. I ended up drain pouring it like 2 years later. So not the biggest spend. I think it was $30, but easily one of the worst bottles that I've had to deal with. Beyond that, you have things like Hudson's Baby Bourbon that they've now rebranded, which I think is good. Some of those are just terrible. I think The most expensive bottle I bought was probably Glenmorangie Signet. That was just okay. I mean, it wasn't bad, but I was disappointed. Like, this was $200, and the next thing I got was an okay Scotch with a really, really heavy topper. Hague Club was bad. It's easier to recount the really bad stuff than I think the best stuff of all time, because I've had the opportunity to try a lot of really good whiskey, which is super cool. We split out some great bottles. Life goes on, and producers are getting better, which is kind of fun. But yeah, when you have the bad stuff, it really sticks in your mind. I've picked up the Pussers here. It's nice to let it breathe. This guy's pretty hot straight out. This is the Pussers Gunpowder. Once again, really good. If you're big into tiki or mixology in general, if you want to make a proper painkiller, supposedly has to be with Pussers. They did a good job branding that guy. This is pungent on the nose. It's like burnt brown sugar, a really delicious caramel toffee. Kind of a fruity red berry papaya, almost like a burnt toast note. It's very evocative of if you go to a restaurant and order creme brulee and it comes out and the top has just been torched, as it should be. But that burnt sugar note is really delicious and really prominent here. It's really rich on the palate. It is a bit hot. The heat it's undeniable. It is definitely there. It's not punishing. It's not too hot, but there is some heat. This is why I think it punches really well in cocktails. I'm trying to think. It's not artificially syrupy. Like, some rums can really hang heavy on the palate. This coats very nicely. Has great body to it, especially for a $30 rum. The burnt sugar note kind of lives through it. There's a little bit of oak on the palate, which is nice. Some rums don't always come through as being really oaky for me. This has some nice oak to go with the really sweet sugars. A faint hint of banana. A tiny bit of amaretto. Really rich, really sweet. Not cloying, not fake. This is definitely not dosed, which is really nice. This could easily be oversweet like a Diplomatico if it was too dosed. Great question here. Barrel pick, do I wish I had another bottle of? That's really tough. I really wish I could take another of the New Riff, the Diamond in the Rift. That one sold super quick. I really like New Riff. That would have been a great one to have. I know that the turkey that has just been bottled for our bourbon, both barrels, I'm going to drink them both and then wish that I had another one, but that's kind of in the future. We have some agave coming up that I think is going to be cool. I think that's going to sell out pretty quick, so probably just one of those, and I'm going to miss it when it's gone. And honestly, the Chattanooga selection, I really wish, that barrel sold so fast. It was kind of unfortunate. I was like, oh, maybe people won't be super into chat, but between Dad's drinking bourbon and breaking bourbon and myself and Seal Box, that bottle went right into the vapor. That was the first ever single barrel. I would totally take another one of those. I'd probably buy a case of it if I could. It was $50. Really, really well structured for the age. You wouldn't have known it was almost 3 years old if you were just drinking it blind. So those are kind of my picks for ones I'd love to get more of, but such is the way of single barrels. They've moved on, and it's on to the next stuff. Yeah, I've killed off some old stuff, some 1973 Stitzel-Weller, Old Fitzgerald. I'm going to miss that guy. Killed off a couple handy vintages that I'm really going to miss. And that's really kind of where the epic ends for me. I've never spent a lot of time chasing things like the Red Hook Rye and the Iron Glove and some of the big Blockwater like the Willets and even Ancient Turkey. I'll get a decanter here where I can, but old Stitzel-Weller is kind of where I've fit my groove. I really like that. Some of the old vintages of the Four Roses small batch limited edition, really good, especially 2012, 2015, 125th. All really good. But those are long gone for me too. I think I actually just killed off my 2017 limited edition not too long ago. And I'd take another one of that if I could too. Yeah, we'll see what we can do. Those should be really fun. You can actually still sign up if you want to put your hat in the ring. They're being bottled. We're working on the stickers. It should be just a couple weeks now. The Penelope selection has actually just hit seal box as well. So I'll get a post up probably tomorrow. I've put just enough of my house together to have internet and computers and stuff set up. So we should get that info out there too. And we've got some fun other stuff coming down the pipes. Yeah, I've liked a lot of the National Distiller stuff. I've had some really good old granddad. They're kind of sweet. They're kind of one noted for me. Like they're always fun to try. They're always really delicious, but they're not the most complex. Like it's the most butterscotchy bourbon I've probably ever had, and they're consistently like that. Um, but Stitzelweller for me has a little more going on, and there's totally bad Stitzelweller out there too. Like people chasing old prime handles because you know it was distilled that Stitzelweller is not the best approach in my mind because just like everyone else, they made bad whiskey too. And wrapping up here, this is really nice. It opened up well. These have all been sitting for about 15 minutes or so. I should have pointed the other way. Yeah, National Distiller is great if you love butterscotch. I really like it. Not the most complex, but when it's good, it's really good. And it's almost candy like, which is kind of fun. Like sometimes it's nice to get that very naturally without bourbon with additives or some people look to rum because it's much sweeter in some aspects, and then you realize that they can just dump sugar in it for the most part. Man, really burnt toast, burnt sugar, not in like a funk way, but in a really savory rum kind of way. So kind of capping up here, we'll go for a few more minutes. If you have any Q&A, feel free to hit me. Going a little shorter week. John is up north hunting, so he'll be back next week. We have a really adventure-filled week next weekend with Marianne Eaves, which should be a lot of fun. We have some big guests coming after that too, which is kind of interesting too. Like we never really planned for this to be just like an interview series, but enough people have been interested in talking to us about bourbon. We figured, why not go for it? It's fun to get to chat to people in the industry and see what they think and send them stuff as well. In fact, I don't know. I might start sneaking this Old Forester signature into blind tastings. It's so fruity on the nose compared to the Sazerac rye. Yeah, the rye has more clove. That doesn't surprise me. But both of these are deceptively fruity. But with more airtime, the Old Forester is definitely cutting back on the banana bread, which is really interesting. There's not as much bananas Foster. There's more caramel, apple pie. Really nice toffee note. Oh, yeah. I'd buy Thomas Handy all day long. I would buy Thomas Handy every single year if I could drop $400 on a bottle. I would probably buy, Single Cask Nation did a turkey that I thought was good. That's on the edge for me. I would absolutely buy Weymouth Malts, did a bunch of Bunnahabhains that were old sherry. They're from the 70s, 80s, 90s. I would have bought those in a heartbeat. A lot of these come down to, I would happily buy them if I didn't have other stuff to spend money on. But there's no mental block for me to pay, I don't know, what's handy, 5 times MSRP, 4.5 times. No mental block there. Oh, that's a really good one. The Cooper's Craft, I actually have some of it here. I haven't tried it yet, but I've heard really good things about it, including from you now, which is really good to hear because I was kind of unsure about it. I wondered why they would spin off another brand name for it. But I'm glad to hear that it's good. That's one I have here. It's unpacked somewhere that I'm looking forward to getting into and kind of comparing. Because honestly, I really like stuff that's coming out of Brown-Forman. I really like when they let it get to a good age and you forget that Jack Number 7 exists. There's a lot of really good stuff in their portfolio. Yeah, so I bought Stiggins Plantation Stiggins Fancy, the pineapple macerated rum. I bought a case of that because it was $18 on a Mistmark. That was really fun. I haven't bought too much else. I did buy a case of the Bunnahabhain from Benny's, a couple of years back. They had a Tamdu that was really nice. I bought a case of that because it was $50. 6 bottles, $50. You get a case discount. Can't beat it. Really good stuff. It was also sherry, but that was a Fino sherry, I want to say. So it's Fino sherry Tamdu, Oloroso, PX sherry, Bunnamen. Really good stuff. I've bought some Knob Creek selections in a case because I mean this comes down to things that are just really good and also really well priced. I'd love to buy a case of Master's Keep, but I haven't had a Master's Keep that I want 6 of. I want maybe 2, maybe 3. I wish I could buy the antique collections in a case, but I've got one mortgage now, and I don't need any more than that on top of that. So yeah, kind of single barrels I really like. There's been 1 or 2 Buffalo Trace single barrels, and it's fun too because I like to buy. You buy 6, you get a good deal. I keep 3 for myself. I usually try and spread 1 or 2 around, give one out as a gift. Send a couple out to get people trying them because it's fun. Like a lot of stores around here get to do a lot of Buffalo Trace stuff, which I think is pretty cool. You're going to be waiting for a while if you want a world whiskey, since I know you want Irish. I know you really want Irish, but our Scotch was not strong enough to buy a first fill PX sherry Benria cask. So that tells you all you need to know about selling whiskey that's not bourbon. As much as I would love a Cooley selection would be great. Middleton, something, Redbreast would be fantastic, but you and I would have to buy 10, 15 cases each to make it run. Yeah. Interesting to think about the Cooper's Craft. I forget what their delineation or what really makes it special other than it being separately branded, but I'm looking forward to comparing that. And I think that's at 100 proof as well, which would be a great comparison for this. I mean, honestly, some of the Jack Daniels at 50% would be really cool. I'm trying to see. Yep, sold during before. I don't know. Pretty solid bottle. It's probably my pick of the 3. Really like the Pusser's gunpowder. I think this is overall the most versatile, the most easy drinking. I know I'm going to go drink some more of that after this while I get some work done. But hard to go wrong with Old Forester Signature. It's so good you'll forget that you own it. And then when you move and you have to pick it up, you'll remember that you have it. Yeah. Unfortunately, I wish that Irish places did quarter casks. I think that'd be tough to get a good quarter cask, but life is life. And thankfully, I mean, you can still get, there's still exclusive malts to the legendary Cooley, and it's still out there. And that dropped 2 years ago. I think there was 500 bottles, maybe low 400s, but I mean, I've bought 2 or 3 of those and they're still available, which is kind of crazy. Our Scotch picks, yeah. People are interesting, at least in Scotchland. There's just so much good Scotch. And I think we picked really great Scotch, and people are less in a frenzy to buy Scotch, especially people internationally who have access to many international markets, which is very different than buying bourbon in America. You can really only buy it from American retailers or occasionally some other retailer. But yeah, the 22-year Wardhead actually gave the Ardmore as a gift just recently to someone who helped me out. Really good bottle. I know I'm going back for one of each when I make a Fine Drams order soon. We got some stuff dropping there. So yeah, lots of fun stuff going on. Cool, guys. Well, to wrap up, this has been a great night. I appreciate you guys joining me in my little terrace of box unpacking. It should be good to go in the next couple of weeks. It'll look much nicer. But dug through, found the Old Forester Signature. Great bottle, nice value. Probably my favorite of the 3. Good oak structure to it. Sazerac Rye, never doubt a good thing. It reminds me of drinking it out of a Soul Cup at New Riff. So good memories attached to that guy. Fun to find one more. And then third, kind of a surprise, the Pusser's Gunpowder Proof Rum. This guy is, pretty competent, works great in cocktails, great neat zipper, really good value. It reminds me of the things that I really like about that style of rum, especially rum hailing from Guyana. So thanks for joining me tonight, guys. Yeah, thanks. It's great to see you guys. Thanks for dropping by, Mash. We'll do another segment soon. I think in the new year, we should have some good stuff, good fun stuff coming through. And thanks, Chris. It's been a good move so far. Other than the possum that got eaten on my back porch overnight, it's been pretty smooth. Nothing to complain about other than picking things up and putting them down. Next week, we should have some new fancy stuff going on with Marianne Eaves. John will be back. Should be a really good time. But in the meantime, if you're looking for me, you know where to find me. Jay, take that review. You can find me on Instagram, my website. I promise I'll get to posting reviews again now that my computer's set up and life is good. Usually I prep and try and kind of keep some stuff in the pipeline for, posting while I'm moving and stuff. But it just didn't happen this time. So cool. Well, thanks everyone. It was great to see you. I hope you guys are all staying healthy. Happy Tuesday. Enjoy your drinks. And we'll see you next week. So cheers. See you guys.